Raiders news, big visits on the first day of offseason workouts today marks the official start of the offseason for the Raiders, and with it comes some exciting news and NFL rumors that could have a significant impact on the silver and black. The main story we're diving into today is the visits happening right now, with three potential draft prospects. If you're tuning in live, you know that Raiders football is back in action. The players making these visits today are Ashton Jeanty, a running back from Boise State Mason Graham, a defensive tackle from Michigan Quinn Ewers, a quarterback from Texas. It's definitely interesting that the Raiders have brought these three players in for visits on the very first day of voluntary offseason workouts. Now, you'd expect guys like Maxx Crosby to be in the building. Let's face it, the man practically lives there. It's also likely that players like Jeremy Chinn, Landon Roberts, and Geno Smith are attending these voluntary sessions, as both Pete Carroll and Josh McDaniels are known for seeking out players who have a passion for the game and love being on the field. What makes today's visit stand out is the timing. Why were all three of these players invited today, rather than spreading out their visits over the week? Is there some sort of significance to having all three in for workouts on the same day? Let me know your thoughts. The Raiders are clearly interested in Ashton Jeanty. He's already had a top 30 visit, a formal meeting at the NFL Combine, and a pro day visit. On top of that, Raiders staff, including running back coach Deuce McAllister and John Spitek, dined with Jeanty and his Boise State coach after the pro day. In fact, the Raiders were the only team to meet with Jeanty over dinner following his pro day. Mason Graham is also high on the Raiders' radar. The team held a top 30 visit with him and met with him during the NFL Combine. With Michigan connections through Brady, and knowing that Tom Brady has significant influence this upcoming season, Graham could be a strong fit for the Raiders. As I mentioned in my earlier segment on the Raiders offseason, the team has made several moves to keep Maxx Crosby happy, including keeping key defensive players like Adam Butler and Rob Leonard, and even giving defensive coordinator Patrick Graham a raise. Mason Graham could play an important role in helping Crosby continue his dominant performance on the defensive line. Raiders draft. Buzz, more big visits, and cornerback news. Let's dive back into some more interesting Raiders news that I think you'll find compelling. We're talking about Quinn Ewers, who's making waves with his top 30 visit. Ewers, a quarterback from Texas, is the only QB in the 2025 NFL draft class to have had a top 30 visit, a pro day meeting, and an NFL Combine visit. This all took place on the same day as the Raiders' voluntary offseason workouts. That alone is pretty notable. A few days ago, I mentioned that I believe the Raiders are targeting a quarterback on day 3 of the draft. Now, with all the draft rumors swirling around, it seems that some quarterbacks may go earlier than anticipated. In the case of Ewers, he could be a guy who fits the Raiders' plan for a 2 to 3 year development window. With Geno Smith on a contract that guarantees he'll be the Raiders' starting QB for the next few years, it makes sense to let Ewers develop and learn under Smith's leadership. Ewers has a ton of potential, but he's still raw, so that development period could be crucial. Now, moving on to something else that has caught my attention. Will Johnson, the cornerback from Michigan. Over the past few weeks, we've been hearing a lot of buzz about Johnson and his potential fit with the Raiders. While I'm not sure I'd take him with the 6th overall pick, I think he could be a solid choice if the Raiders were to trade back in the first round. A pick somewhere in the 9 to 12 range feels more appropriate for Johnson, and it's one that could really pay off in the long run. According to Ian Rappaport, Johnson is recovering well from a hamstring injury he suffered back in February and is now cleared to work out for NFL teams on Monday at 10 a.m. in Ann Arbor. What makes this even more interesting is that after his workout, Johnson's first visit will be with, yep, you guessed it, the Las Vegas Raiders. The team already held a top 30 visit with him and had a formal meeting with him at the NFL Combine. There are also Michigan ties with Tom Brady and even Charles Woodson, so the Raiders are paying close attention. Adding another layer to this is the fact that the Raiders have been asking other top draft prospects, like Mason Graham, about Johnson. If a team's top picks are showing interest in another top prospect, especially one that could go in the top 10 or 12, you have to take note. This definitely has my attention, and I'm sure it has the Raiders' front office intrigued as well. Raiders news, Mel Kiper's final mock draft, and more. Today we're seeing Mason Graham visiting for the official day, and next week Will Johnson will be making his way to Las Vegas. It's clear the Raiders have their eyes firmly on these two Michigan prospects. Now let's talk about something that might interest some of you. Mel Kiper's final mock draft. Whether you're a fan of Kiper or not, his final mock draft carries some weight. With his extensive ties to ESPN and conversations with NFL insiders, Kiper's predictions are often based on solid information circulating around the league. His final mock draft is particularly valuable, as it reflects the latest updates and trends that could impact the Raiders. Now, I know not everyone has access to ESPN Plus, which is required to read his full article. So here's a breakdown of what Mel projected for the Raiders in the first 2 rounds. For those of you who want a more in-depth look at Raiders news 365 days a year, completely free, just hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got you covered with all the latest updates without the paywall. Now let's dive into Mel's 2-round mock draft. At number 1, the Tennessee Titans select Cam Ward, and at number 2, it's Travis Hunter. Abdul Carter and Will Campbell are taken next, followed by Mason Graham, who goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 5. When it's the Raiders' turn to pick at number 6, Mel's not surprised by the prediction. Ashton Jeanty, the standout running back from Boise State, is the pick. Jeanty has been a name that constantly comes up in Raiders mock drafts, and it's easy to see why. Here's why Kiper believes Jeanty fits perfectly with the Raiders. Last season, the Raiders ranked last in rushing yards per game, 79.8, and yards per carry, 3.6, and tied for the second fewest runs of 10 or more yards, 34. The ground game was clearly an area of need. Pete Carroll, the new coach, will want to bring a stronger running attack to the team, and Jeanty could be the answer. With impressive speed, vision, and balance, Jeanty racked up 2,611 rushing yards last season and showed potential as a 3-down back in the NFL. One area of improvement for Jeanty is his pass-catching ability, though his 2023 season showed significant strides in that department. He'll need to continue to refine his skills in that area and improve in pass protection, but his upside is undeniable. Taking Jeanty at number 6 would be a move that makes a lot of sense, and I don't think anyone would be upset with that pick. Moving to round 2, with the Raiders picking at number 37, Tyler Shuck is taken at number 33, and Jalen Milroe goes at number 34. This could signal a run on quarterbacks earlier than expected in the draft. Now here's something that I'm personally very excited about. If Emeka Egbuka is still on the board at number 37, I'd say the Raiders should jump on that opportunity without hesitation. Raiders mock draft review and NFL rumors. Let's talk about the next pick in Mel Kiper's final mock draft. The Raiders might make a move to trade up to pick number 35 with the Tennessee Titans, or potentially even push for a trade into the back end of round 1 to secure their target. If the Raiders stay put at pick number 37, Kiper has them selecting Carson Swensinger, a linebacker from UCLA. Swensinger is a player who came out of nowhere in 2024, recording 115 tackles, 4 sacks, and 2 interceptions. He's been rising up draft boards, and I'm on board with Kiper's pick here. Swensinger could be a great addition alongside new linebacker acquisitions like Landon Roberts and Devin White. With Robert Spillane and Divine Diablo signing elsewhere, the linebacker position remains one of the Raiders' biggest question marks. Swensinger's skill set fits well, and I believe he could be an immediate contributor. Looking at this draft overall, if the Raiders were able to address both running back and linebacker needs early, I'd give this mock draft an A- grade. However, I'd still love to see the Raiders add a wide receiver and potentially a cornerback to really round out the roster. But if this is how the 2025 NFL Draft started for the Raiders, I wouldn't be upset at all. Now let's shift gears and dive into some NFL rumors that are making waves. First, some random Raiders news. Former quarterback Jack Jones went unclaimed off waivers and is now an unrestricted free agent. This is significant because all 32 NFL teams had the chance to claim Jones, and not a single one showed interest, despite his potential $3.4 million contract. This shouldn't come as much of a surprise, given that no team traded for him earlier. Now, onto the big NFL rumors. There's a lot of smoke surrounding Shedeur Sanders, possibly going to the New Orleans Saints. The Saints quarterback coach and wide receiver coach recently met with Deion Sanders at Colorado's Pro Day. After this meeting, and following Shedeur's Pro Day, the buzz around his potential move to the Saints has only intensified. Deion Sanders has publicly stated he likes the idea of the Saints drafting his son, and he's been vocal about which teams he believes would be the best fit for Shedeur. Here's where it gets really interesting. The Saints are now the team with the highest betting odds to draft Shedeur Sanders. That's a pretty strong indicator that a move could be in the works. It also makes me wonder if this could lead to a potential Raiders-Saints trade. If the Raiders were to trade back from pick number 6 to pick number 9, they could pick up additional draft capital and still land a top prospect. If you want to see the Raiders trade back, go ahead and hit that like button and type trade back in the comments. I think a move down could be a great opportunity for the team. NFL draft rumors, trade ideas, and quarterback surprises. There's a lot of buzz surrounding Deion Sanders and his potential influence on Shatter Sanders' draft prospects, especially when it comes to the New Orleans Saints. While I'm not saying that Deion will directly push the Saints to work with the Raiders, I do believe that Deion has a lot of trust with the Raiders, and that connection could make a Raiders-Saints trade more likely. Tom Brady, who has been Shatter's mentor, also plays a key role here, and I believe his relationship with both teams gives the Raiders a unique window into a potential trade-back scenario. If the Raiders are willing to trade back, which they are definitely entertaining, this is the type of trade I would love to see happen. According to the NFL trade value chart, trading back from pick number 6 to pick number 9 while also getting an extra second-round pick, let's say pick number 40, could be a solid deal. With that additional pick, the Raiders could grab someone like Trey Amos, Xavier Watts, Trevian Henderson, or even Carson Swensinger. The Saints, on the other hand, would move up to secure Shatter Sanders and jump ahead of teams like the Jets at pick number 7. This type of trade could work well for both sides, and it seems like the Saints are truly considering moving up, especially if they're looking to lock down Shatter. Now let's talk about another quarterback who's starting to generate some significant buzz, Jalen Milroe. I never thought I'd say this, but there's a real chance that Jalen Milroe could go in round 1, and that's shocking. If you'd asked me just 48 hours ago if he had any chance of being a first-rounder, I would have said no way. But now, Milroe has accepted an invitation to attend the NFL draft, and that means at least one NFL team is seriously considering him for the first round. One NFL executive was quoted saying, "The NFL doesn't want another Will Levis situation." You remember Will Levis, right? He was expected to be a top 5 pick, but ended up sitting all the way through the draft before finally being taken in round 2. The league doesn't want that embarrassment again, so Milroe's invitation to the draft signals that he's being viewed as a potential first-round pick. If Shatter Sanders goes off the board early, and if Milroe is also considered for round 1, it could trigger a big quarterback run in the draft, much like we saw last year with offensive linemen. This could also mean that quarterbacks like Jackson Dart or Tyler Shuck could go earlier than expected. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Jalen Milroe will be drafted in round 1? Personally, I'm still leaning toward no, but I have a feeling that the decision could go either way. Milroe is one of those wild cards that could surprise us all. Jalen Milroe's draft potential and Breece Hall trade rumors. There are definitely some coaches out there who believe they could work with Jalen Milroe. His 2023 tape under Nick Saban was definitely stronger than his 2024 tape, so some teams may feel they can develop him. Given the recent developments, I don't think Milroe will even be available for the Raiders at pick number 37. With the possibility of a quarterback run, we could see players at other positions fall into the Raiders' range, which might work out in their favor. If I had to pick the teams most likely to take a shot at Milroe, I'd point to the New York Giants and the Cleveland Browns, who could look to grab him in the back end of the first round or the start of the second. The Saints are also on that list, and even Pittsburgh has shown some interest in him. Teams like the Jets could still be in the mix too, especially with the uncertainty around Justin Fields' future. Milroe is certainly a wild card, but at this point, I think he's making a case for going much earlier than we anticipated. Before we get into the final topic, I want to give a huge shout out to the NY gang, all the amazing people watching live and engaging with the content early. B. Haimim, Clownface Killer, and MadVet Raider. Thank you so much for subscribing, turning on those notifications, and being a part of the Noti gang. Your support means a lot. Now, let's dive into the final story of the day, and it's a trade rumor surrounding Breece Hall of the New York Jets. There's been talk that the Jets might be looking to move on from Hall. According to some reports, the Jets' front office has indicated they want to go with a 3 running back approach. This doesn't sit well with Hall, especially as he's heading into a prove-it year and wants to prove he's worth a big contract. Given the Raiders' desperate need for a running back and Hall's physical style of play, he could be a fit for what Pete Carroll looks for in a running back. Plus, Hall is better at catching passes than some might think, which would help in a more versatile offense. However, I don't see the Raiders pulling the trigger on a trade for Hall before the draft. It's likely that no team would, given how deep the running back class is this year. If the Raiders leave the 2025 NFL draft with the same running back room they entered it with, then yes, I could see them exploring a trade for Hall. But based on the current draft class, I think a trade for him before the draft would be a shocker.